Welcome to the Fourth Row Podcast, your exclusive source for 2A basketball. And now, your hosts, coming to you from the Slim 4 studio, Andy and Benny Hill.
Welcome to the Fourth Row Podcast, the only podcast dedicated solely to 2A basketball here in the cold state of Utah. I'm your host, Andy Hill. I'm here with the coach, Benny Hill, in the Slim 4 studio, sponsored by Security National.
Boom.
There we go. It's been a while since we've been here by ourselves. It feels
a little empty, yeah. We don't have Coach Shep's usually here to give us some input and some insight of what's going on through the week. The boys are kind of here. They're a little upset at this point. We had to regain some composure after the Chiefs, which is not a fan favorite in this home. I'm a Chiefs fan. I'm an Andy Reid fan. They are not.
Yeah.
So they had to go leave the studio a little bit to go regain their composure, and they might come back down, but they were a little hot.
Yeah, they were hot. So welcome tonight. It's just us. It's kind of nice to be back, and it feels kind of different, so it'll be nice to get back in it. We'd like to thank our good friend Chris Jorgensen in the E12 office for once again being our title sponsor. For any of your mortgage needs, give him a call, 283-3000, turning houses into homes. A couple of announcements about the Fourth Row Podcast. The Fourth Row Podcast is still the number one 2A podcast in the state of Utah, 41 weeks running. We may be the only one, but we're still the number one. The audio version of the podcast will release each Monday, with the YouTube versions releasing later on in the week. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media channels at Fourth Row Media, and you can also catch all of the old episodes on teamhive.live.
Yeah, that's a cool thing for us. I mean, my boys actually, I think I had told them, but I think Jet was just scrolling through some games last night. He's like, Dad, your podcast's on teamhive.live. Yeah. Well, yes, it is.
Yeah, the
pretty cool.
The premier place to watch games here in Central Utah. Barrett Hilton, folks at Centricom do an amazing job up there, so we appreciate him.
One other addendum to what you just said. My goal now is to have the podcast and the YouTube version up Monday morning.
All right.
So you have it there. I have a reason to do it now. If not, the week just gets busy and it leaks into Wednesday, Thursday. My goal is to have them both up by tomorrow morning.
We're realizing that as we do this, that it's a lot of work that goes on.
There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. Yeah,
people say, what do I need to do to get on a podcast? How do I make my own podcast? I'm like, where do you want to start?
There's a lot of stuff.
You just kind of learn as you go, and we're learning, and things are getting better, and there's a lot of things coming at us, so we appreciate you tuning in all the time.
Speaking of that, I noticed you'd send a message to the New Heights podcast, the Kelsey brothers, to see. That is probably the coolest podcast that we watch. So it's the New Heights podcast. It's Travis Kelsey and his brother Jason Kelsey, who will now be playing each other in the Super Bowl. Jason for the Eagles and Travis Kelsey for the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. They have an amazing podcast. Yeah, probably the best They are the number one sports podcast in all the world. Yeah, and it is absolutely awesome.
They play off each other. Jason's kind of the more calm, reserved one. Travis is Travis. But as Benny said, if you want a good podcast to listen to, of course they're NFL guys and they're going to recap the week. But if you want some insight into some NFL players and where they came from and what they do and some fun, the New Heights podcast, it's fun.
I mean, it's kind of our the gold standard for podcasters, in my opinion, for sports. It might be a little explicit sometimes, but it is good. So anyway, didn't want to go down that road, but my goal is to get the YouTube up because they are on YouTube and they are very entertaining.
They are. They are funny guys.
This week's will be absolutely amazing to listen to.
It'll be good to get
post playoffs and then leading up to the Super Bowl
breakdown. They give great breakdowns, really great insight,
real raw breakdowns of what it really is like. Yeah.
The thing I love about it, you get an insight into professional organizations, and you realize at the end of the day, they're all these phenomenal athletes, but they're people too. Yeah. And so you get that personal side of it.
So we keep waiting for a shout out from the Kelseys, hopefully one of these episodes.
So go check out New Heights podcast on Apple, Spotify. They're on YouTube. You won't be disappointed. What do we got going on tonight?
We have some recap of the game. There's a lot of games this week. Now that we have games going Tuesday through Saturday, there's a lot to talk about. I made it out to a couple games. I know you did as well. Some the same and some a few different. So we're going to go through just our thoughts of the games throughout the week. We're going to go through an Inside the Numbers segment, which we've got some cool stuff to talk about tonight. Of course, our Power 5. And a couple big games that we're going to talk about and feature as we go through our Power 5 that we had this week was previously the number 1 ranked Parowan Rams traveling to South Sevier, which was a fantastic game, and then the South Sevier traveling to Enterprise game. Huge matchups in Region 19, and we had some Region 16, some big Region 16 games. We had our rivalry game, Gunnison North Sevier. So, anyway, wherever you want to start with, we'll just take off from there.
Well, let's start out with our hometown Bully Dogs. Let's talk about the game on Wednesday. They traveled to North Sevier. North Sevier is probably the longest standing rival that we have here at Gunnison. I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, the rivalry's lost a little bit of its luster over the years.
It has. It used to be a battle royal. The stands, the students, adults. I mean, Dennis worked out in Salina for all of our childhood and going through high school, so he was always involved in it. So it was always like a adult down to kids. It was really a big time rivalry, but it's still there. Yeah, both teams still want to win. Not quite as fiery and maybe as hateful as it used to be, because to the credit of everybody, the kids get along well with each other now that they just see each other so much now. It's just more interactive. We're great. Obviously, we have Peyton here on the podcast with us. Her husband, Coach Shep, is the coach of North Sevier, and we see him a lot. He's a great friend. So, yeah, probably the dirtiness of it's gone, but either team wants to win that game.
Yeah. So talk about that game. We were both there.
I think
thoughts on the game.
Thoughts on the game was the first half was everything you would expect a rivalry game to be. Both teams shot exceptionally well. Both teams shot well from the 3-point line. I don't know yet what the spread was at half, but it was a relatively close game at half, maybe 6 to 7 point game. Jet saying a 7-point game at half. Very, very well played first half for both teams. It was fun. That's what you expect it to be.
Yeah, it was.
The second half, I think Gunnison took control of the game early in the third quarter, dominated the boards offensively and defensively, and that was the game. They got out to a 10, 12-point spread and kind of carried that. North Sevier did go on a 10-2 run in the fourth quarter, mid-fourth quarter maybe. Got it to about 4 or 5, but Gunnison then sped away from there. So I think the second half was just dominated by the Bulldogs, mainly by their height.
Yeah, that was
size on the boards.
That was my observation. The second half, North Sevier shooting kind of really tailed off.
They did not.
They were starting to get a little bit tired. They missed a bunch of front end one-on-ones, free throws. Their 3-point shots started getting a little short, and Gunnison's height took over. Brogan Christensen played well. Tyson Tucker played well in the paint. They didn't have. North Sevier doesn't have any height.
No, they're compared to, not like Gunnison is monsters by any means, but you are correct. And one noticeable, Brogan Christensen, we had a Brogan sighting. Yeah. He played very, very well. They posted him up a few times, and he got some offensive boards, some putbacks. So it was good to see him have a nice game.
Yeah, so the Bulldogs pulled away in that game. It was a game I think they had to have.
Oh, absolutely. I think both teams really needed that game, and so that one hurt the Wolves, but for Gunnison it was a great win for them.
Yeah, I thought they played well. Down the stretch, our guys played well. Cody played well. Jet played well. Pearson Judy came in, gave him some hustle. Coming off the bench, Zach Overly, who's been playing well.
We'll talk about Zach in just a second. Yeah.
But I think you're seeing some good positive points from the boys, especially from the Bulldogs this year. North Sevier struggling. The week before they beat Paiute, who was number 2 on 1A, had a huge win. Just didn't have it on Wednesday night.
Yeah. They went completely cold in the second half. They just went cold.
Yeah.
And when you're not losing the rebound battle as well, it's hard to win.
Yeah.
So Gunnison gets a good win that was Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I went out to the out to South Sevier. South Sevier hosted the Parowan Rams.
Yeah, on Tuesday night.
Mm-hmm. So that game was a spectacular game. I mean, it completely lived up to what we thought it would be. Parowan going into that was our Power 5 number 1 team, and they were the number 1 team simply because they'd been beating whatever was coming at them. Yeah. They just previously knocked off Enterprise, Kanab handily.
Blitz, Kanab.
Beavers, they were on a 3-game win streak in the region. They go up against South Sevier. I was curious. Well, two things I have listed. One, the Rams, Parowan Rams, are big.
They are big.
They are big. Brock is a large individual, and he plays above the rim. He is a big. Luke Millard is bigger than what you think. Also, they were standing side by side during the national anthem, and he's a little bit shorter than Brock. I could see, but they are big. And they rebound amazingly well. We'll go over the stats when we go through the Power 5, some of the stats. But two things. Parowan is very large, and South Sevier, in my opinion, was the South Sevier that everyone would expect to see. They were fast, they were fearless, they were attacking, and they shot, I think they had 9 threes in the game. So we had this big matchup between the size of Parowan and the attacking nature of South Sevier. And I would say the two previous games of Parowan, they had the intimidation factor, in my opinion, with Enterprise and Kanab. It was clear they were very intimidating to those two teams. South Sevier wasn't intimidated. One interesting note, Stockton Robert checked into the game early. He hit threes right in Brock Fielder's face, 2 of them right away. So top to bottom, South Sevier was not intimidated. It was a great game, went into overtime. We'll talk about how it finished out later when we go through the Power 5, but that was a very, very well-played game, amazing finish, and that's Region 19 right there. And either of these two teams are good enough to win a championship.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And then on Thursday, before we get to Gunnison's game on Friday, same South Sevier Rams traveled down to Enterprise. Enterprise is a tough place to play. We've been down there. They've got it all. They got the laser show. They got the fans. They've got a great environment to play down there. Back and forth game, much different than game number 1. This was a lower scoring game.
This was in the 50s, wasn't it?
I think it ended up 54-49 or something like that. Is that what it was?
54-49, yes.
54-49, much lower. It was basically a 1-2 possession game. Enterprise went on a run. South Sevier came back. Again, this was more of your traditional South Sevier. They make or break it from the 3-point line. That's bottom line. That's what it is.
Oh, they're a scoring team. They're just going to flat shoot it and shoot it and shoot it.
Yeah, and that's what they you got Ridge and all these guys. They're not afraid. They come out. They're fearless, right?
I'm telling you, they are fearless.
Brindley, these guys they'll
Miramontes,
all of them. They're not afraid to take big boy shots. And I think that's what really helps South Sevier is they're not hesitant. They see open shot. They have the green light, and they're going to take it. It didn't appear the inside game of Enterprise was quite as strong as it was when they played in Monroe. But I fully expected after that last game both teams were going to make some adjustments. And I would have been shocked to see Enterprise just beat them again just because South Sevier was going to make those adjustments, and that's just kind of how it goes in this region. And then going into the state tournament, eventually a lot of these teams are going to play each other again. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to be interesting the third time to see what they do, but South Sevier pulls away with the win on the road.
Huge win.
That's a huge win for them. They needed a rebound after the week before, and they got 2 big wins this week.
Yes, they did. So, like I said, we're going to talk about South Sevier and what they're doing at this point right now, but great week for them.
Yeah,
they couldn't have asked for a better week.
Yeah, they played really well, and then bounced to Friday, and our Bulldogs make the long trip up to Colville.
It was what you expect. It was snowy.
Yeah,
snow-covered roads. It was a little dicey coming home, but I will always have a soft spot in my heart. One for North Summit, not to go there because it absolutely sucks to play in North Summit.
It's a horrible place to play.
No disrespect to anybody at North Summit, but just competitively there, they get after it in their gym, and just our experience from Gunnison. I don't know if they get more amped to beat Gunnison because there'll be years North Sevier will travel up there and knock them off. We'll go up there and they'll put the hammer to us, and we'll anyway. But our good friend Hayden Bloomquist, he's right over here. I got a picture with him and Slam over here. He was. We met him when he was fighting his battle with leukemia. That's how we first made the connection. We were up at the Huntsman Institute also when we met him, and he has been absolutely amazing to our family ever since. So he came down for the game. He's going to school at Weber State right now. Great young man. He came down, so it was awesome to see him run into him in the hallway right when we got there. and to visit with him and his mom. That made it extra special to be up at North Summit. It really did. And Coach Priest, he was coaching, going through the situation with Hayden through the leukemia treatment, and Coach Priest has always been great to me and our family and to Jackson. So it was just good to go. We just have great friends up there, and always will. And now we've got to give a shout out to our good friend Mel. Saw him in the hallway too as soon as we got there, and just a great young man. So. Other than all those things said, we just didn't play very good at North Summit again.
Yeah, I would say this was, if I could sum this up in one word, it was a roller coaster.
Yeah, it was. But in North Summit and really North Summit, hats off, credit to Coach Priest. They've been on a 4-game skid all through region. They haven't had a region win yet, and they haven't looked good in games either.
Yeah, they've struggled.
But credit to Coach Priest and his players. He had his guys ready. They had a good game plan, and they came out. I think they won this game. They were ahead start to finish.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they came out, and they, first half, they pushed the lead. It was 18 in the first half, or close to that.
You got up there.
And they just kind of took off and going. They seemed to be attacking. They were shooting well. They were rebounding well. The Bulldogs seemed just flat. Yeah,
they were flat, and it was obvious that Coach Priest made a huge effort. His North Summit, they are powered by Mel Brown and Buck Sargent in the post. I mean, they probably go 6'3", 6'4", both those two, and they're well-built kids. I felt when we played him in Gunnison, Buck Sargent was in foul trouble immediately, and Mel just didn't do much at all. But up there, they made a concerted effort to get the ball into both those guys, and they did work in the post. They hit the offensive glass hard, defensive glass, they hit it hard. They controlled the game. And then you got, Sawyer Richens had a good court game, took care of the ball. It got, North Summit into offense, and they controlled the game.
Yeah.
So Gunnison, they take that one on the chin up at North Summit. That was a tough loss for them.
I did see a Trevor Richens sighting back.
He played for a couple minutes.
Yeah,
he was on the court, but you can tell he's not full strength by any means.
It was good to see him back, though. I know that he had that early season injury, still an underclassman. You could definitely tell, even just watching on the video, he was about 50-60% maybe.
Yeah. So that game up there, just from the Gunnison standpoint, a shout out to a few players. Homer alert. Jet played well consistently throughout the game, kept him in it.
Yeah.
And when that game was ballooning out of control, and before I get to that, John Wilding sprained his ankle early in the first quarter, so he was out. So Jet did play consistently and scored, kept it within striking distance going into the third quarter. And in the third quarter, and we've said this all year long, there's a good group of kids that they have good chemistry with, and it clicked again. You had Jet, Cody, you got Zach on the court, you had Pearson Judy on the court, and I think Carter Hill was on the court when they made their good run. But Zach Overly was the old vintage Vinnie Johnson, the microwave from the old Piston Bad Boys days. He went on fire.
Yeah, he hit a couple big threes and some shots, and sometimes you get in those games, you see guys who come in and they've just got the hot hand.
Yeah.
And it's like just give him the ball, and it was like he couldn't be stopped. And you could, even watching at home, you could feel that momentum shift, and it's like there was nothing North Summit could do. It's like just ride this thing out. And I think Gunnison, they ran out of energy and they ran out of time.
Well, when you're coming from that big of a deficit, and they were shorthanded to begin with, John was not there, so they're shorthanded. But you're right, that end of the third quarter, that was a fun game.
Yeah.
When Gunnison made that run, cut it to about 5. It was probably about, like I said, it got up to 14, 15. Cut it to about 5. That was a fun time, but they just couldn't get further stops. Plus, they ran out of time.
Yeah. But I thought there was some definitely, even though you take the loss, I think there was some bright spots, especially for this season. I think looking down the road, there's some good things happening.
I thought Zach would probably be an unknown name throughout 2A, but I think Zach is a very skilled player.
Yeah.
And he came in and he shot the ball well. He's long. but he's going to be a huge difference. I personally, if he can get more minutes, he's going to make an impact for the Bulldogs. They got 3 games left going into the playoffs, and I think he can make a huge difference for them.
Yeah, I agree. Just from the outside looking in, a couple kids who I think are difference makers aside from the guys that are playing a lot of minutes. One of them is Pearson Judy. Pearson's not going to give you a ton of points, right? He's not going to come in and give you.
I told him if I was coaching you, Pearson, I'd tell you layups only, bud.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what. There is a difference in the energy of the game when he's on the court, and it changed the game. Even though I can't point to one play that he really made, it was just the intangible things he was doing, and the energy kind of ramped up and just kept it going. And Zach, I think I can't say enough about him. He came out and was just. Otherwise, Gunnison gets beat by 20 points.
Yeah, it was not trending in a good direction.
And so I know it ended up 8-10 points at the end, but I thought he played really well, and you could see those guys. They kind of got that momentum, and they kind of got that energy going. So I can see some good things. We just got to capitalize that on down the stretch. Mm-hmm. But kudos to Coach Priest and his Braves. They needed that win bad too. They've hit the skids and had a hard time.
I told him, I said, dude, you're going to have finally a good weekend with the win. You can enjoy it until your next game. Enjoy this one. So I was happy for him. Disappointed for my son, and disappointed that collectively they some of the kids played really well. I thought just not good enough. They dug themselves in too big of a hole. So I was disappointed for the Bulldogs, but I was happy for Coach Priest.
Yeah, good for them. So a big week. They really played Tuesday through Saturday. Kanab makes the long trip over to Blanding. They get the win over there yesterday, too, in Region 19. So you had games for 5 straight days, which before you really play Wednesday, Friday. With the change-up in schedules, and we're not even talking about girls tonight, but you've got games 5 days a week now, and it's pretty crazy trying to keep track of them all.
It's wild to keep. Can you imagine if you were like hosting a website that was actually keeping scores and everything? Yeah. Dude, it would be unbelievable. There's a lot of stuff going on.
There was one thing I have noticed as a side note. Before, you could always get on Des News or Max Preps. It was almost real time. Even then, now it's getting a little bit slower. Yeah. I see it's taking teams a little bit longer. I think just because there's so much stuff going on.
Yeah, there is.
It's a lot of work. So great week in basketball.
It was an awesome week of basketball.
A lot of things going on. We still got 2 more full weeks of region play to go. So this is just one of those. We're going to have 2 more full weeks before we get into playoffs. So exciting things going on.
Well, I don't have my laptop charger. Will you pull up the RPI?
Yeah, I got it.
So we can cover the RPI, see where we're at after Saturday's games.
Yep, got it right here.
Well, let's just talk about that right.
So RPI This was as of this afternoon. I pulled this up. Enterprise, number 1. South Sevier, number 2. Kanab, 3. Millard, 4. American Heritage, still hanging around, number 5. Duchesne Eagles break the top 8. Number 6. Parowan's, number 7. APA West Valley, 8. San Juan, 9. Roland Hall, 10. Gunnison Valley Bulldogs, 11. We'll go down to 15. North Sevier Wolves, 12. North Summit, 13. Rockwell 14, and Waterford Ravens at the 15th spot.
What did you say Duchesne was?
Duchesne is now number 6.
Ooh, I'll be darned. All that talk we said that they might get buried in the RPI, There they are.
And they've really, Duchesne's really turned around. They've got a 10-7 record for a long time. They were buried down there. They've got some big wins, and they're slowly just kind of ticking up the last little while. So here's something interesting, just really quick about the RPI, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say this right now. The top 4 teams, Enterprise, South Sevier, Kanab, and Millard, that's not going to change for the end of the season unless something just dramatic happens. It just, those guys, they're too far ahead in the RPI to drop. It's just not going to happen. And I'll go so far to say I don't think Enterprise or South Sevier will drop out of the number 1 and 2 spot. That's just kind of where we're at right now, based on what they're going to do, who they have left, what I think they're going to end up in region play. You're going to see Enterprise or South Sevier number 1, and then Kanab, Millard 3 or 4. This just kind of where it's shaken out so far.
So I think it's about time that we have maybe a live bracket.
Yeah.
Get our bracket out, because some things are going to change a little bit. Some going to change, but it's getting down to the nuts and bolts of where you'll pretty much be able to see or give a good couple scenarios of what's going to happen. It's getting to that point, really.
Yeah, and here's something that I've noticed is I've got that bracket ready. I'll get it sent over to you, and we can get that posted. As you look at the RPI and you look at the brackets, this is something you want to look at. So obviously the brackets get split on two sides. So when you look at the numbers, you want to look at your odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Those are on one side of the bracket, and then 2, 4, 6, 8 are going to be on the other sides of the bracket. So when you look at the RPI, you say, all right, how does this matchup work? Well, two teams that are right next to each other are going to be on opposite sides of the bracket.
Good point.
So just something to consider. So right now, your odd numbers that are going to be on one side of the bracket would be Enterprise, Kanab, American Heritage, and Parowan. The other side of the bracket, you got South Sevier, Millard, Duchesne, and APA West Valley. So those.
Where's Parowan?
Parowan is currently at number 7.
7?
Yeah.
Don't want to be a 10 team going in.
No, and currently that's Roland Hall. So it's just something to look for. We'll get those brackets up, but yeah, it's really going to start solidifying itself.
Absolutely, yeah, it's going to get exciting. And and there's some huge games this week.
Oh yeah,
especially Region 16. There's some huge games. Well, both regions, 16 and 19. The others, I think they're pretty much. I don't. Yeah. So, anyway. The RPI.
Yeah, so exciting stuff. Well, with that being said, let's move to Inside the Numbers.
Yeah.
It's been a fun segment this year. This segment is sponsored by Kimball and Roberts Accounting in Richfield. We thank them for supporting the podcast, and they're always supporting their South Sevier Rams, so we appreciate them this year supporting us. What do we got for tonight?
Tonight, I wanted to talk a little bit about my good friend Darren Rhodes from Millard.
Yeah, we saw him roll into the North Sevier game on Wednesday night.
He was there. He is a basketball guy through and through. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I've always been impressed about him is he's always, and I'm not saying other coaches probably do the same things, I don't know, but he has done a very good job of giving his kids, they're all in on basketball. A lot of activities, events. He takes them. We see them traveling quite a bit. He actually happened to be at the Parowan South Sevier game also. I didn't know until afterwards. We're texting about the game. He's like, "Oh, well, I was there." I said, "Well, so was I." But anyway, he's in it to win it. So I just want to talk a little bit about what Millard, that they kind of get lost a little bit in the conversation with Region 19 being as strong of a region as they are. And last year they were overshadowed by what San Juan did and what Enterprise was doing. But Millard has been in our Power 5 every week for the past 2 years. Mm-hmm. And just a couple numbers I wanted to go over in this segment here, just what Coach Rhodes has done over the past 2 years. In 21-22, they were 19-6 overall, 8-0 in Region 16. Undefeated in Region 16. 64.8 points per game. And total points scored, 1,619. So 16-19. Let me say that again. 1,619 points total scored. Mm-hmm. The only team more than them was San Juan Broncos.
Wow.
And that's totally understandable. They were an absolute juggernaut offensively.
Absolutely.
They were at 1671. So Millard Eagles, they didn't show well in the state tournament. They had a spectacular season last year.
Yeah.
Finished with 4 players, very close, at least 3 in double digits, 1 around 9 points per game with Stevenson. Fantastic season. Followed up this year again, 22-23. They're 14-5 overall right now, 5-0 in region. Have not lost a region game in 2 years. Very impressive. 61.8 points per game. And now this year they've scored a total of 1,173 points. That's leading 2A in scoring. Mm-hmm. So our Inside the Numbers segment this year, what Millard is doing, Coach Rose, a 2-year run that he's had over there in Millard, they're putting up a lot of awesome, successful numbers.
Yeah, and I felt bad. This is one of the casualties last year. It wasn't COVID, but they got hit with a bad flu bug right before the state tournament and didn't show well. And even then, they just about got into the semifinals. I would say if they were healthy, I still think they're a top 4 team last year.
They would have made a run, no doubt about it.
And so they're healthy. It's good to see them. The thing that I love about Millard, every time you see those guys, they're excited to see. I ran into them in the hall, and they're just happy kids. They're just excited to be there. You can tell they just have a passion for life and a passion for basketball.
They're enjoying their basketball experience.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I love to see, is that Coach Droge is making sure they're enjoying their basketball experience. Now, it is much enjoyable when you're winning a lot of games too, and they're winning a lot of games. So anyway, Coach Rhodes, past 2 seasons. I just want to throw those stats out. I was just doing some research on Millard. I want to include those stats.
Yeah, and I'll just go, once that they've got 2 of the best players out there. Hunter Rhodes, if you haven't watched Hunter play, he's smooth. Everybody you talk to, everybody knows Hunter. He just goes out and does his business. And Brant Stevens, I like to call him the silent assassin. He is phenomenal. His defense, his shot, everything. Those 2 guys are probably the best 1-2 duo out there in 2A right now. Just phenomenal on both ends of the court. They play so well with each other. They understand the game, and they're just good kids.
Yeah, and they've played since they were sophomores. They've been varsity starters since they're sophomores, so they've played a lot of games together. Scored a lot of points. The 1,000-point mark in high school, 1,000-point score is a pretty big deal. I think Hunter Rhodes is over 1,200 points.
That's pretty impressive.
So we'll talk about it later when we do our, at the end of the season, when we do our player drafts, we'll break a lot of this stuff down. But anyway, Millard Eagles is our focus of Inside the Numbers tonight.
Yeah. To get to the top spot with Gary Hill's numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I saw a tweet go
Someone
out.
was tweeting the scoring in
thing.
or in high school,
Yeah.
total in high school points, yeah.
And they were still like 500 away from Gary was. Gary was a Gunnison guy back in the day. Probably one of the best high school players ever to play in the state of Utah. He holds the scoring record. I don't think anybody will ever beat him.
With no 3-point line either.
Yeah, pretty impressive.
Anyway, Inside the Numbers.
Congratulations to our Millard Eagles. Well, let's move on to what we say really matters, and let's talk about the Power 5. The Power 5 this year is sponsored by our good friends at Barney Trucking. Since 1947, they've been providing the energy needs here in Utah, as well as being an important part of the local economy. If you're interested in driving one of their big, beautiful blue and white trucks, reach out to them at barneyjobs.com.
Thank you, Barney Trucking.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Power 5.
I'll tell you, the Power 5 is a tough one now because the parity especially the parity in Region 19 there's just parity. Mm-hmm. So any team, we just got teams knocking each other off. And when Robert Lovell was here, I went back and watched his interview that we had with him, and he went out on the record, and maybe not a totally bold statement, but no one's going to go undefeated in Region 19, and he is correct.
Yep.
I think there's 4 teams tied for the top spot at 4-2.
Yeah, and most of them still have to play each other again.
Yeah, so the Power 5 is a tough one right now. There's a lot of movement going on. Mm-hmm. Last year we had those solid 1-2 teams that kind of stayed 1-2-3 teams, but man, there's just a lot of movement because of the parity in Region 19.
Yeah.
But we'll fire it off. Our dark horses are going to remain the same. American Heritage, they keep winning like we suspected they would win. Mm-hmm. Due to I think they're a very skilled team. They're a big team, play good basketball, and they're just going to keep winning in their region.
Yeah, and this is one team too.
Where are they at in the RPI? You said 5?
They are at 5.
5.
Yeah, so I don't see them moving a lot. They do play, at least according to their schedule, Wasatch Academy this Friday. They're at Wasatch Academy. Their game with Real Salt Lake got rescheduled again till, I believe, later in this week or next week. So they're still challenging themselves out. American Heritage, I think this is one thing that I think is a little scary about American Heritage. People don't know a whole lot about them, and they play such a different style. And I think, well, American Heritage, were they going to do much? I don't know. Rockwell just about beat San Juan last year, and they came out of nowhere. So I can see American Heritage being something like coming in, and if they have a good game, they can play with anybody.
Well, one of the challenges is watching film compared to real life. Film does not show the speed or the physicality like it does in real time. Mm-hmm. So you are correct. Someone could show up, in the playoffs, a play-in game, and get blitzed by him because you may watch film and say, okay, yeah, we can handle that. Oh, it's just it's a full court, whatever, 2-2-1 or whatever they're playing. We can handle that, but you can't see the size, the length, the reach, the spread of defenders. Mm-hmm. they could be a dangerous team. Just simply, you're correct, because people haven't seen them in real time.
Yeah, and they play. We talked about this. They play such a different style of basketball up north than they do down here. It's very different.
Yeah.
And when you don't see them and you're not always there accustomed to it, it can present some challenges, especially when you get in the state tournament and all of a sudden you get this pucker factor going on. Again, we saw it last year with Rockwell. I mean, they hung around with San Juan for 3.5 quarters, which really they had no business doing that, but they did because they just did.
It was just an unknown.
Yeah.
It took a while to sort it out.
That's why I think we have American Heritage just floating around, 10-4 record, 5-0 in region. They're not going to get beat in region. They're going to still hover in that top 5 spot, RPI.
Yeah. Second dark horse, Duchesne.
Yeah.
They're going to be a tough out. They just really are. I know that one thing about Duchesne, they're not going to light the scoreboard up, but they're going to play tough physical defense, and so they're going to be in every game from here on out. Now, a huge matchup for them at this point right now is this Friday. They have Millard at Millard.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, this is one of the teams that plays with Millard every single time.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's matchup. I don't know what it is, but you can go back this year. You can go back last year. It's one possession games every time with Millard.
Yeah. So Duchesne's going to remain at our dark horse spot. Now, that's always fascinating me because Gunnison had a chance to either tie or beat them in regulation. It was 49-46 was the final here in Gunnison. Gunnison they're going to have to make some big adjustments against Millard this Wednesday, but Gunnison plays Duchesne tight, but not Millard tight.
Yeah.
But Millard and Duchesne, for some reason, I think it's the physicality and the toughness of Duchesne's defense, and Coach Hoops just has them amped for that game.
Yeah,
it's just the way it is. So they're going to face Millard this week, which is going to be a huge matchup for Region 16. Yeah, to see if Millard can continue that undefeated region record, or if Duchesne can challenge them for a region championship.
Yeah,
so
it is a big game. That game's on Friday over in Fillmore at Millard. All right, let's go number 5 spot.
Number 5, Kanab still in the Power 5. They're always going to be there.
Yeah,
I think they have the tools. We've said it all along. They've got the tools. It's just going to be whether they're going to get hot, put the chemistry together. Coach Glazier he's going to have a great game plan for them in every game. He's got great schemes, offense and defense. It's just whether things click that night. So this past week, they drop a tight one to Enterprise 56-52, and they get a win in San Juan 58-51.
Yeah,
2 solid wins for them.
Yeah, so this week, they're at home against Parowan. It'll be interesting.
That will be
that game at Parowan. Janes, I think it was 3 seconds into the game, he picked up his first foul, and it just went south from there.
And I think at this point now, you flush that game completely. Yep. And if Kanab can wipe away the intimidation factor and just get rid of that and just play, this is going to be an absolute dogfight in Kanab.
I agree. I think this is a very different game. The other big game is they're at South Severe on Thursday. They handily beat South Severe early in the season at home, going away. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't even close. So, again, a lot of these they're matchup games. I think the Parowan game's different. This is a big game, big week for Kanab. I think they've got to go out. They can show they have the tools to do it.
Oh, at 100%. But this may be their toughest back-to-back games they've had at this point right here. These 2 coming up.
Yep.
So, Kanab currently 13-4 and 4-2 in the region.
Yeah. So number 4 spot,
the Parowan Rams currently 8-7 and 4-2 in region. The record does not wow you, and I think that's just indicative of their inconsistency that they play with. They've lost games that they shouldn't have lost, and so they're 8-7, but they can beat anybody on any night,
and they've proven that.
And they have proved. They ran through the region. They did lose. They started region play with a loss to San Juan. Then they ran through the region up until they ran into South Severe. So they had beat consecutively Kanab, Enterprise. Boom, boom. They go to South Severe, and a couple things just this past week. So they lost to South Severe 79-76 in overtime. Spectacular game. And then they followed up with a win at Beaver 63-38.
Yeah.
Parowan, I just have down on my sheet just size. They are large. Just getting the stats from that particular game. rebounds, Luke Millard had 20 boards.
I saw that
in that game against South Severe. He's an absolute rebounding monster, and Felder had 12. That's a lot of rebounds. Mm-hmm. Now, with South Severe shooting, South Severe shoots a lot, so you are going to clean a lot of boards. But nevertheless, they are large. Luke is a fantastic rebounder. Cash Mortensen is a great player. He's got great wiggle with the dribble. He can get into the paint. He's a little bit quicker than I thought he was going to be watching in real life. Great player. And Waylon Robinson was absolutely humongous. I mean, he had 5 threes in the second half, which carried Parowan. It might not even been close if he doesn't hit those, but he was on fire in the fourth quarter. So Parowan is a very, very dangerous team. And for all intents and purposes, not to split hairs on this one, and I'm not trying to be controversial whatsoever, but Parowan was up 3 at the end of regulation. South Severe puts a shot up. Rebound goes up. There's a scramble for the rebound. Then there's a scramble for the ball on the court. South Severe was awarded a timeout rather than there was no jump ball called. They were awarded a timeout. Watching it on film, I don't know that there necessarily was possession of the ball, but they get the timeout and they get one more crack at it. And Money Miramontes, he hit an absolutely unbelievable shot.
Yeah.
Fadeaway 3, hits the front of the rim, bounces up, goes in, forces overtime. One of the first possessions in overtime, Luke Millard fouls out, and I thought that was a huge
absolutely.
break positive break for the South Severe Rams, but really killed Parowan in overtime. Just his physical presence is humongous. But South Severe, they did what they had to do to get that win. So anyway, we're talking about Parowan being the 4th spot. Parowan easily could have walked away with that win. If they get the call as opposed to South Severe getting the timeout call, they win that game. But like I've always said, it doesn't negate how good either team is, whether that was a win or a loss game. Right. Records, it does. It impacts records. I understand that. But Parowan can beat anybody on any given night, and we'll talk about South Severe. They can do the same as well.
Yep.
So Parowan, they're just dangerous. They're going to be dangerous clear through the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. So this week they're at Kanab on Tuesday, and then they make the long trip over to Blanding on a Saturday afternoon. So it'll be interesting to see. They absolutely shellacked Kanab last time. I don't think it's going to be the same thing. I think Kanab at home, I think it's going to be a different game. I think there's going to be a different game plan. There's going to be a different vibe. Parowan's a tough place to play.
Well, and I'm telling you, Parowan, as scary as they are with the Felder factor, and when you add Cash Mortensen, who's hard to guard, if Waylon Robinson's hitting threes, I'm telling you, the missing link here is Luke Millard. If he would get more touches in the post, and would demand more defensive attention, Parowan could be scary dangerous. Yeah. They already are, but I think Luke Millard, just from the outside looking in, if he demanded more touches in the post, look out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the state tournament, they're a tough out.
I
wouldn't want to play them on a Thursday morning.
That's why I wonder where they were in the RPI even. Is if they fall down to the 7 spot, that's just tough. 7 or 8, you get into those matchups, they are going to be tough. Anyway, Parowan Rams at our 4 spot.
All right, number 3.
Enterprise Wolves.
Enterprise just keeps hanging around.
Steady Eddie. They're nothing flashy, but they have a formula they're always going to be winning. They're sitting at 12-4, tied for the lead at 4-2 in region. They had a big win this week on Tuesday. No, when was that? 56-52. That was Friday.
Tuesday they played Kanab.
Oh, Kanab. Sorry, Kanab. Yeah, 56-52 win versus Kanab, and then the 54-49 loss to South Severe in Enterprise.
Yeah. So you look at Enterprise's schedule, and this is where I think, not that they have an advantage, but this week they've got a little lighter schedule, if you will. So they're at Beaver on Tuesday, and then they're at home on Friday against San Juan. So instead of going against the big dogs, they have a little bit lighter load. I wouldn't take either one of these teams lightly. They struggled with San Juan a little bit when they went over to Blanding. two winnable games for them this week. I think it's a good time for them to regroup a little bit. I think they're a little banged up. I think Austin Thomas broke his nose last week.
I did hear that, yes.
They've got some guys that are, it's nice to not go so hard this week. Enterprise is what Enterprise is. They've got this machine. If there's one thing you know about Enterprise, Bud, Coach Randall is going to have them ready. They're students of the game. They know what they need to do. They know how to adjust. They've got the guys that are just, like I say, they're just steady.
That's what's so. Last year around this time, they dropped 3 straight. Maybe they went skidding, but this year they're playing a lot of close games. They're not really blowing anybody out. Mm-hmm. A lot of close games, which really in Enterprise is not a big deal. All that is, so when you have close games in the playoff, there's not the pucker factor and the choke factor.
Right.
So I think Enterprise is perhaps right where they want to be. Maybe they would like to have more wins. Of course, who doesn't? Mm-hmm. But I think they've got the tools and the scheme to win a championship.
Yep.
So they'll come in at our 3rd spot.
Absolutely. Number 2,
South Severe Rams.
Well,
currently sitting 12-5 and tied for the lead at 4-2 in region.
Yep. So this week they had a big win at Parowan in overtime. That's 79-76. Then the win down in Enterprise, 54-49. So they get two
humongous wins.
2 big wins this week. Their schedule, they're home with Beaver. I still think at some point Beaver's going to win a region game.
Did they win one last year?
They didn't.
Oh, okay, we said that last year, but they.
And then they're home. This is a big game on Thursday. I think I may try to go out to this one on Thursday. They're at home with Kanab.
That would be a good matchup.
That is a big game. Like we mentioned earlier, Kanab got them earlier in the season pretty handily. I think it's one of the worst region losses that South Severe got beat by Enterprise in overtime, but Kanab handily beat them down there. That is going to be a big game to see what happens. But again, another tough week for South Severe Rams.
Man, I tell you what, the way South Severe plays, it's almost as if they don't adjust for anybody. They just play how they play. Mm-hmm. And you think about what they just did. My hat's off to Coach Christensen and his squad of what they just did this week. They just beat what we would say, and it's factually true, the 2 biggest teams in 2A that posed the biggest mismatch for them. They flipped it and took advantage of their mismatch to beat both those 2 teams. Mm-hmm. And so my hat's off to Coach Christensen. I thoroughly enjoyed what he did to manage that Parowan game because early on in the first half, the size of Parowan really caused them problems. But man, they just play fearlessly. Mm-hmm. They just really do. There was some adjustments that he made that I thought was very impactful. One, he went right away in the first half. Stockton Roberts came in. He finished the game with 16 points. He had 3 threes, but he came in, and immediately Brock Felder was on him. So immediately you bring Brock Felder away from the rim, and Stockton hit a couple threes and was able to penetrate again in the paint. So that was a huge difference maker. Ridge Tibbs, man, he can flat score. He had 18. In the second half, Coach took Emilio Miramontes, and he got some isolations with him. On the perimeter, you can't guard him in space. Mm-hmm. You just can't. So you had isolations with Miramontes in space, just able to get by his guy at will. Mid-range jump inside the free throw line, just a jumper, which is money. Get to the rim, draw fouls. Coach Christensen even went and ISO'd him in the post, posted him up, and they were able to clear Felder out of the paint, get Millard out, and then Miramontes just goes to work in the post. Mm-hmm. So I think the skill of Miramontes and Coach Christensen and the adjustments he made, and just the way they play, man, they just shoot so well. Brace Brinley came in and hit some huge threes in the fourth quarter and overtime. Mm-hmm. So hats off to South Severe. They just play a style that is what they have done. They've created the mismatch to where other teams have to adjust to them as opposed to having to play some different defense to defend bigs. They're just going to take advantage of their size and their speed and their skill. Mm-hmm. So South Severe, man, they Emilio Miramontes, just call him money. I'm telling you, the guy is just an absolute gamer. Yeah. He finishes with 23 and 2 threes.
Yeah, and the one thing,
and the huge shot to go into OT.
Oh yeah, just huge.
If the game was on the line, I'm telling you, if the game was on the line, I would put the ball in his hands over just about anybody. He is just dynamic.
This is one thing I've noticed too about Ridge. Guys, obviously, they're fully aware of Ridge. So they're moving him back. He's taking 23, 25-foot shots consistently now, and he's still shooting mid-40s. I mean, it's pretty incredible. You know what he's going to do. He's going to get the ball. He's at the volleyball line.
But people, yeah, you're exactly correct. People know he's going to shoot her, and you know you have to slow him down, but he still gets his points up.
Yeah. So that's one guy I've noticed. I went back and looked at a lot of South Severe scores. At times, Miramontes has been under control. At times, Heath's been under control. But nobody's been able to control Rich Tibbs.
Yeah. So
he has that ability to get open in space. You know, the closest thing I think that was when Dax Hunt was guarding him in that first game against Enterprise. But even then, he still got up 20 points. So it's
so they are an absolute offensive juggernaut.
Yeah.
And they play disruptive enough defense, and they're aggressive enough that they've been able to handle Enterprise and Parowan back to back with their size. So South Severe, they are a scary, scary team, and well, they're just scary.
Yeah,
I love the way they play.
Yeah, very good. All right, our number one team for this week.
Number one team, I kind of led off, maybe tipped it off with my Inside the Number segment, the Millard Eagles.
Yeah, they deserve it.
Like I said, Millard has been in the Power 5, has not left the Power 5 in two consecutive years. Mm-hmm. And they've hovered around the 2, 3, 4 spot almost the whole last year and this year. But Millard Eagles, they currently sit at 14-5, 5-0 in region. They're on they're 8 straight wins.
Yeah.
So they are playing well.
So they had that big win against Duchesne this week. Then they top it off Friday, a big win at North Severe. They will be here in Gunnison on Wednesday. We'll get to see them firsthand, see them take on the Gunnison Bulldogs, and then they are back home on Friday to take on the Duchesne Eagles in a huge Region 16 game.
Yeah, so Millard, like I said, they're on an 8-game win streak. They're scoring. They've put up 75, 72 in the past couple of games. Duchesne held them down to 49, but this game on Friday night is going to be a huge matchup for both those teams.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, quick recap.
Starting from the bottom, dark horses: American Heritage, Duchesne, Kanab 5, Parowan 4, Enterprise 3, South Severe 2, and the Millard Eagles is going to claim our top spot this week.
Right. Congratulations to Coach Rhodes and his Millard Eagles, number 1 in the Power 5. I mean, to me, I think it's a big deal. We put a lot of thought and effort into who's in the Power 5. Again, there's a lot of rankings out there, and people will quote a lot of different rankings. The way we've always looked at it, and if you haven't listened to us before, is who are the hottest teams. So if the state tournament started next week, we're ranking. Here are the top 5, and then with our dark horses, top 7 teams in order of how hot they are right now. Records really don't have anything to do with it. It's how well are they playing right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so and that's why I kind of wanted Millard. What they're doing has been very impressive, and we get a highlight on a little bit as the top spot this week.
Yeah, pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a great week of basketball. Great region matchups. There's some huge ones. They're going to shake up our Power 5 next week. It's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm just looking here at the bracket, and I'll send this over to Benny, and we'll get it up on the website just so you can look at it. Here's an interesting matchup. So let's say our Gunnison Valley Bulldogs stay at the number 11 spot. They would play currently the Duchesne Eagles for a chance to get into the state tournament. How about that?
That'd be a little dynamic.
That'd be a fun game. Here's something else. If they keep on a collision course too, the second game of the morning on Thursday in the state tournament, you would see South Severe v. Parowan.
Ooh.
So there's some fantastic matchups that are out there. I don't think these top 4 teams are going to move a whole lot. I think they can move with each other. I'm still going to go on record and say I think Enterprise is going to be on one side of the bracket. I think South Severe is going to be on the other side of the bracket. Then you're going to have Millard and Kanab. So there's going to be, I think it's wide open, and it's whoever's going to get hot come 2-3 weeks from now. A lot of games to be played.
Oh, and the other thing too, I mean, really, you're going to go into the state tournament, and the games in the state tournament are going to be absolutely awesome to watch because it's going to come down to a shot here, a turnover. I mean, it's going to come down. It's so the margin of victory is going to be so razor thin from here on out once we get into the playoffs. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, good times. So we'll get that bracket up, and you guys can start doing your bracketology and try running some numbers and plug them in. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Well, let's move on to our wrap up tonight. This segment's sponsored by Lightburst Broadband by G Telco, the Sanders family. They've been providing telephone service here in the Gunnison Valley for over 100 years, and now providing the fastest, most reliable internet here in GV. Final thoughts for tonight.
My final thoughts, I've got some games highlighted that I'm really interested in this week. The first one would be Duchesne at Millard. That's going to be a huge matchup for Region 16 standings. And Kanab's games, they got Parowan and South Severe this week. What a juggernaut.
Yeah. the Region 19, actually Region 16 too, is going to be a fantastic week.
Yeah, so a lot of great basketball. And the crazy thing is we got this week and one more, and then it's playoff time. We've almost already rolled through the season.
It's pretty incredible.
This one went unbelievably fast.
Yeah.
Unbelievably fast.
Yeah, my final thoughts for tonight, a little bit different from me. I actually, yesterday afternoon, I had a little bit of downtime when I flipped on The Last Dance.
Oh?
And Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan, right? He was at a different level. The guy was just, there's only one Michael Jordan out there. And I was watching the episode where he had taken the break to go and play baseball, and he came back, and he was in first season back, and they just couldn't get over the hump. He just wasn't back in shape and wasn't doing anything else. And it was about that time he started filming his movie, and he was in California. What was it called?
Space Jam?
Space Jam. I just slipped my mind. Space Jam, and he was looking to get back into shape. And I'll circle back around on this. One of the things he did, he would film the movie during the day, then at night they basically built a basketball court and they'd have pickup games. And he invited the best guys in the NBA there. And he talked about the reason why he invited the very best guys there is because he wanted to watch how they play and figured out how he could beat them. I mean, he had Shaq, he had Reggie Miller, he had Kobe, he had every good guy in the NBA at that time. And that's what he said. He says, I wanted the best because I wanted to know how I could play against them and how I could beat them. I think we're at the point in the season right now where the edge is going to go to the teams, to the coaches and players who are going to put in that work outside the game to go back and say, how did I get beat and what am I going to do to win the next time? Because these guys are so evenly matched.
I say the margin of error is going to be so razor thin. You are correct.
I think the difference is going to be, number one, I think, what players are going to step up out there, right? There's going to be, all right, who can get to the next gear? Mm-hmm. And then in the background, it's which coaches and which teams out there are going to put in that little bit of extra work to say, all right, guys, how did I get beat? How did I get beat this night? What did I do well? Now, how do I put that together and make a 3-game run to win the state tournament? Somebody's going to do that. Mm-hmm. We saw it last year with San Juan had put in that preparation all year long. Even though they struggled against Rockwell, when push came to shove, they made those decisions. There's a team, one of these teams that we're talking about here in the Power 5, one of them is going to do that, and it's going to come down to those little things, those extra preparations, this extra, we did this at practice, or we watched this video, or we made this adjustment. That's what's going to make the difference down the stretch.
Great point.
And if they don't, you're going to see some of that separation now. But any of these top teams right here, I think they're all getting to that point, and the margin for error is going to be so small, like you mentioned. Mm-hmm. It's going to come down to a possession here, to a foul here, to a turnover here. That's where you're at right now. It isn't big mistakes. It's tiny little mistakes, and mentally and physically they've got to prepare themselves for that. And this is where they're going to do it over the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. So it is going to be. Like I said, there honestly is no clear-cut favorite.
No.
You could have tapped San Juan as the favorite last year. This year, like I said, it is wide open. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Coaches are going to put in a lot of extra hours. They're going to be burning the midnight oil, watching a lot of game film, and you're right, it's going to come down to those teams and coaches that can keep their players locked in for a couple more weeks.
Yeah.
So. Gonna be fun.
Exciting stuff. Well, before we sign off tonight, again, we'd like to always thank our sponsors. We appreciate everything they do. Our title sponsor, Security National, Dixie Power, good friends of Barney Trucking, Snow College South, Crosby Home and Farm, Lightburst Broadband, and also like a special shout out to Redmond Inc. I went over there this week and was talking to Brandon Foote, who's their marketing director over there at Redmond. They have a fantastic group of companies over there. It was good to visit with him. I realized from this time talking to him to the first time I talked to him how far we've came along. Even he said, wow, you guys have done a lot since I talked to you a year ago. And
that's good to hear.
I was really excited. I could pull up YouTube. We pulled up our website. We pulled all these things. And I was so excited to say, hey, this is what we're doing. And his comment was, we just love being a part of what you guys are doing. And so we appreciate them. We appreciate everything they do. And, again, all of our sponsors, without them, this wouldn't happen. Yeah. So
we did good tonight. We were just barely at
Welcome to the Fourth Row Pod.
We just barely went over our 1 hour.
Yeah, I thought, we were so close. We were so close.
It was good. It was a great podcast.
It was fantastic. We thank everybody for joining us tonight.
Yeah, my other closing thought is it's been a lot of fun to go and reconnect with good friends and people that we've met via the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
It's been absolutely a lot of fun. So if you see us, don't be afraid to just come up and say hello. We'd love to meet some people we don't know, parents we don't know, players we can. We don't understand who the players are, but parents we don't know. And those sometimes parents are just as enjoyable to visit with as the players are.
I was at my son's 12-year-old rec game in Salina yesterday, and I had two people come up to me and talk to me specifically about the podcast. And to me, that's fun that they come over and we were talking, about some different things, and to me that's enjoyable. It's fun going to games and say, hey, we appreciate what you guys are doing, and we're working on it. It's a work in progress. We wish we could talk about every team and every player every night. It just doesn't work like that. But we're getting there. If you have something you want us to talk about, and we've said this, and we don't hear much feedback, honestly, please let us know. We would love to hear about some stories or something else that's going on. We'd love to give you a shout out and talk about it.
So, we're all ears.
Yeah.
Anybody wants to come to the podcast and sit down and visit, we'll sit down and visit.
Players, coaches, we've had more people on this year than I think we ever have, and it's been a lot of fun to have people and have them tell their stories and learn about what they're doing and some different things. So it's been a great time this year.
Anyway, that's all I got.
All right. Well, we appreciate you joining us. So for the Fourth Row, for Benny, I'm your host, Andy Hill, and we're out.
Thank you for spending your time with the Fourth Row. For more information, check out our website at fourthrowmedia.com or send us a message through any of our social media channels.